The Fantasmagorium Show is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota, a retrospective and review of all things Fargo. It's over. 10 episodes up and 10 episodes down. 5th season on the books. Let's discuss. The award-winning Coen Brothers executive produced and Noah Hawley run FX series of Fargo is what we are here for. So let's go. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37. Steve's eating biscuits. What's going on, Kat?
Nothing, ready to go.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Now, is there anything, because last time you had mentioned that there was stuff from last week that we hadn't said. Is there anything that you're...
Don't think there's anything from last week that we left unsaid.
Okay.
We kind of sped through last week. We didn't have too many people. Oh yeah, actually we did have a few people, like maybe 5 people came by.
Honestly, I was tipsy. I don't remember much of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why we had so many viewers. Before we get into it, because we should just get into it. Oh, spoilers, by the way. Spoilers for season 5 of Fargo. You've been warned. Yes. The Phantom Organist is here. It's good to see you, Phantom Organist. I heard that you were a firefighter, which is dope.
Yes, pretty soon we're going to have to call a superhero named Fire Extinguisher Man.
There we go. The Flaming Organist? No, that doesn't sound good. Never mind. We'll figure it out.
I want pancakes again. Someone make me pancakes, please.
And Taylor Swift is greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU with the hellos. Hello. Hey, Maggie. All right. So let's start this sucker with a bang.
Yeah, I was wondering, because this series always pulls the rug out from under you in the final episode to embrace the whole based on a true story thing. Granted, still haven't seen season 4, broken record, I know. But this probably does the least amount of subverting of expectations. It plays right into what you would think kind of is going to happen. So we begin with Gator sitting under a tree. He's kind of finagling his hands out from behind his back, untying the rope, and we see that he's got the blindfold on because his eyes are gouged out. He gets up and he starts stumbling around through the snow and finds his way to the open door of the dugout. And he kind of moves through there, feeling his way through, and we see that it comes out on the opposite side of the Tillman Ranch entrance gate, out of this big sliding barrel opening out into the field. And he climbs up, and we could see the FBI cars and the SWAT guys moving in with their backs to us, and they're pretty far. But Gator hears their voices, and he starts making his way out in that direction. Then so it's like, okay, he's running back towards the... Granted, he can't see, so it's like, okay.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. We'll get there. So anyway, he stumbles to the dugout and he's going through. Did you recognize the dugout from before?
Well, I assumed it's the dugout from where Ulla Munk at the beginning of the season, earlier in the season, killed the goat and bathed himself in the blood and mud. And
right.
Roy, a couple episodes ago, went in there and found it, and he presumably somebody else cleaned up the goat because it's still the same dugout and the path going through. So then, meanwhile, we cut back to Roy, and he's coming around. Oh, hello, Lemon Pie.
Hey, Lemon Pie.
Yeah, so we come around. Roy comes around on the front porch, and his father-in-law, Odin, is there again. And once again, Odin is kind of trying to insult him for being soft, all that, and Roy's not really interested in hearing it. He's like, you see a man come in here wearing a dress, haircut like the Three Stooges? And he's like, when the violence comes, it comes hard, it comes fast. And he strangely says, he accuses his own daughter of being soft for not killing Nadine. And then he says, I'm kind of surprised you haven't killed her yet, about his own daughter. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so you were just accepting the fact that he could kill your own daughter in any day and didn't care. and you're surprised that he didn't do it. Like, this guy's a real piece of this guy's a real tool. And so Roy has finally had enough of his bullshit, because this guy, of course, is the one who's drunk on the Kool-Aid. He runs the militia and all that. And I thought at first that Roy was just gonna call him out on it, because again, they teased in the beginning of the season that Roy is not a firm believer in all this stuff. He'll believe in so far that he gets to run his little fiefdom. And I was expecting him to yell in his face and like, you're just a fucking idiot and all that kind of stuff. Instead, no, he's like, yeah, you better take out your teeth, old man, or I'm gonna punch him out. And instead, he pulls out a knife and just slices his throat right there. And I was like, ooh. And then he just looks at him. He's like, how's that, old man? And his daughter, Karen, the new wife, wanders around the corner and sees, and she's immediately like, Daddy. And she turns to run, and Roy's like, oh, hell, if I have to chase you down too, woman. And he rounds the corner, and then bam, just Dot is right there with the rifle and shoots him right in the stomach, and he falls on the ground. And I thought for a second that we were going to get him to start whimpering and simpering, and instead he's like, come to daddy type creepiness.
Give us a kiss.
Yeah, give us a kiss. And then the feds round the corner, and we see Whit Farr there, and they're like, oh, FBI, freeze. And Roy slithers off, and she drops the gun and is like, wait, don't shoot. I'm the hostage. And so Whit Farr is able to at least assure that Dot will not get shot. Well, again, shocked that Roy got shot that early, barely 5 minutes into this thing, and is already
surprised. I was surprised because I was like, well, that's over. I guess we're done now. That was quick. And so I do enjoy that was something that I thought would happen halfway through the episode, and we deal with the brief denouement, as it were. But I'm glad it was just like, nope. I think we found out, and if they're going to go, they're going to go. It's not going to be a big action sequence, which again is sort of keeping in with the original movie. That's not what we're here for, is a giant firefight. You saw some shocking stuff, and now we should be good. And so I do like that he gets shot. The only thing I didn't like his reaction to to getting shot, because anytime I see a person who gets shot in the belly, all I can think of is Mr. Orange from Reservoir Dogs. And I'm just like, oh, that's not a comfortable thing. You can't just walk that off, don't you know?
Yeah, he gets up almost like it's nothing, and he starts running, and he looks like he's wincing a bit as he's running across the plains. And sure enough, the gunshot alerted the militia guys, and they start firing, and then the FBI starts firing. And rather than having a traditional staged fight, you see quick flashes with cuts to black, and Karen gets down and kneels and tries to hide from the bullets, and Whit Farr covers Dot on the ground on the porch to protect her, and the gunfight's over pretty quickly. And Whit's like, don't worry, I'm gonna get him. She's like, oh, he's gonna get away. He's like, don't worry, I got him. And Whit takes off. Karen's handcuffed. They take Dot away, and Dot's like, well, I need to speak to let my daughter know let him know that I'm okay. And they're like, okay. So they walk her off, and Roy meanwhile has run back out towards the dugout. He goes inside. Whit Farr follows the blood trail. I'm like, no, just don't do this. And he goes inside.
Oh, because the blood trail usually means you're going to die.
That usually means, that there's a trap. And plus it's like, okay, you subverted my expectation, which was you were going to follow the true story trapping to the point that you weren't going to let Dot get the shot. And you already subverted that by letting her do it. And since Whit Farr, he's already saved Dot, which he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Even though she wasn't necessarily in need of rescuing in that particular moment, he ensured that the other feds wouldn't get her shot in the crossfire or whatever. And it's like he served that role. I'm like, he's not. I just had a gut feeling that he's not going to kill Roy. And sure enough, when he goes into the tunnel and Roy sneaks up behind him, and Whit Farr sees him, and Whit's being really naive, thinking Roy's going to submit. And it's like, dude, he's not going to submit. Don't do it. And he's like, come on, son. You have to put the gun down. I am an emissary of God. He's like, I'm not your son, and that's not a joke. And Tillman pulls this really quick move. I almost thought that it seemed like Whit shot him. I thought he did because the pistol went off, but I guess he missed because Roy was so close to him. I didn't see how he could miss the shot, but he did.
But that's the thing. Like, if I've learned anything from never having to deal with this situation in my entire life, it is you get as close as possibly you can so you can deflect or push or something like that. Like, I'm not saying I don't have Roy Tillman balls. I know he's a bad guy, but he was a very confident, masculine man. And I wouldn't be able to walk towards a guy with a gun that was pointed at me. But obviously, Roy has been in that situation before, or is confident enough in his own abilities to know that he can get out of it. And I think that, he went to fake put his knife down. And then as Wit was on his radio, he popped up. The gun did go off, didn't get him, but it was something like that. And then boom, right in the, like basically just stabbed him in the heart.
Yeah, he just went up and stabbed him right in the heart and then said again, "Oh, quiet son, just accept it." And it's like, oh, geez, he gets, and then Wit just kind of dies. And I thought, his character almost seems superfluous in the series because I thought early on that he was going to be the go-getter. Like, he's not going to let the case go. He's going to befriend Dot. He's going to save Dot, this kind of thing. And when he shows up at the hospital, when Wayne has been admitted, when he got burned several episodes ago, he wants to talk to Dot, and she says no because she has to go see Wayne. And then he just disappears for 3 episodes, and I thought that was a bit weird. So now he finally comes back, and it's like, okay, what has he really accomplished in the series overall? One, he inadvertently got Danish Graves to go back to the ranch and got him killed. Now, it'd be one thing if Lorraine learning of Danish being killed is what motivated her to raid the ranch, but it wasn't. She was already sending the cavalry in anyhow.
Yes.
And you could argue that in the previous episode when Wit says we're not going to kill the victim with a helping hand. But overall, I felt a little underwhelmed. I thought that character was going to have more of a payoff or get to have some type of significant meaning of some kind in the client, and it just never really came around. He was almost a non sequitur the whole way through.
Well, one thing that you and I have mentioned a couple of times is how, at least in what you've seen more Fargo than I've seen, but in the movie and in season 1 and in season 5, I think that law enforcement does play a role in what is the story of Fargo. You got to have cops, and you got to have at least one good cop. And because New Danish Graves, she's not New Danish Graves, she's new the cop lady.
Indira.
So Indira, you don't have to mute for the whole time, Kat. The echo, for some reason, the echo, or you can mute for as
the
much
other
as
noise downstairs. So
no, I appreciate it. Sorry, the banter I miss. Anyway, but no, Indira, she is trying to do good. Finally becomes disillusioned with police work through not only the fact that she couldn't pay for anything, so it wasn't lucrative for her to stay with the police service, and there was like no respect from her spouse, like her marriage dissolved, and so her going. But again, she was sort of the cop that we were introduced to at the beginning of the series, and Wit. And there was more of an emotional connection between Wit and Dot than there was between Indira and Dot. Indira was always sort of cold. She was initially the arresting officer. And so Wit, being the one to not rescue, but ensure the safety of the woman who had saved him going, and then the best way, I think, if you're telling this kind of story, and I'm not saying this is being like a life goal for any law enforcement, but I think that one of the stories that we're told is the and seen, and it's been depicted in film many times, is the cop that gives his life in the line of duty. And Wit has that now. It's kind of cynical to sort of pull a Rick Blaine from Casablanca story, but yesterday he was just a state trooper. Now he's the honored dead. Like he did lay down his life doing what he felt was right for like good, like saving Dot was his motivation. He fulfilled it. He is done. It's almost like killing Obi-Wan Kenobi before we get off the Death Star kind of thing. I'm mixing my metaphors all over the place, but it's too bad that a good man had to die. But I think for the law enforcement theme of season 5, really good. It's like good storytelling. I miss Wit, justice for Wit. And I think he got it.
Yeah, because Roy continues stumbling down the tunnel. And strangely, he comes up he climbs up the ladder, comes out the same hatch that the Gator did. And the first thing you notice is that the hatch is closed. Well, Gator didn't close the hatch on his way out. And when Roy gets up, he sees the FBI vehicles all the way over there, and he's like, "Oh, I got it. I'm almost there." And he was going to head in that direction. And I'm like, what's your plan here? It's like you're shot in the gut, and your plan is to run towards the FBI vehicles. Like, I wasn't sure what he was going to do. Was he going to try and commandeer one of them and steal them and drive off? I don't know. But then we see all the feds in the SWAT gear right behind him, and they tackle him to the ground and slam him down. And then Agent Joaquin walks up, and he's like, "Oh, your son ratted you out, by the way." and he just starts turning red as a tomato on the ground as they're restraining him, and you see that the blood is now just all the way up the shirt. And I thought for a minute that he might die.
Well, and again, that's another one of those things that I really, and I said this about Martin Freeman's character in at the end of season 1, is that I wanted that squirming, squealing pig.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that, but I did get animalistic resistance, which is almost the same thing what William H. Macy did at the end of the movie. And so I did appreciate that, because I did want to see that guy just angrily howl at the heavens, or at least snarl, or something visceral from him. And I think I got it from
yeah,
Roy.
I feel we're missing that, because we will come back to him in a later scene, but
yes,
I do feel that was the one thing I really wanted to see from Roy all season, because like Lorraine said early on, oh, you want responsibility from everything. Well, that means you just want to be a baby. And it's funny how, in the very next scene, Dot is being walked over by the ambulance. She says she's okay, and we see Gator sitting there. He's not in handcuffs yet, but he's like, Nadine? And she's like, Gator? And she sees that he's blinded, and he apologizes to her, and she comes up to kind of console him, and she's like, it's okay, it's over now. And he said something surprising. He asked if she had really seen his mother, which was surprising because a couple episodes ago, I got the impression when he went to see her in the barn and she told him that she saw Linda, that he knew that was not true. He seemed to be kind of firm with her that, oh, come on, like he already knew she was dead. But now he's asking, oh, did you really see her? And she's like, no, I just thought I did, but she was an angel in heaven and watching out for me and loves you. And he said he just kind of accepts his fate, and he says, will you come see me in prison? And she says, yeah, and I'll bring you cookies, the favorite kind. And I presume that to finish the Nightmare Before Christmas allegory that they've been going with, that he will be probably the star witness at the trial against Roy. And I thought it was interesting that they don't show any of the trial scenes. They skip over that, because between Roy and Nadine, Dot, they are the two star witnesses against Roy Tillman. And potentially Karen, if she finally sees the light, that, she saw that visceral reaction she had when she saw what Roy did to her father. Maybe she'll probably turn on him as well. Because you could tell that Dot didn't have any ill will towards Karen anymore. She understood it. Like, she's been, brainwashed and, beaten and battered by Roy.
As she was being sort of walked away, it was touching to see her sort of regard Karen in the same way that we saw Dot introduced in the first episode, being arrested. But obviously Karen's in a much worse situation. She's not a woman protecting anything except her own interests. But it is for her to be walked away as the victim, as we see someone who's actually perpetrated harm, which again, like there's a strong, she is a kidnapping victim. So there is a strong sort of savior with the law enforcement, FBI, the people who would be from the government are here to help.
Yeah. And I was surprised. I thought they were going to have a follow-up scene also with her visiting Gator in jail or something, but no, that's kind of his final scene. And
I do enjoy that you said star witness, considering that Gator is blind. Moving on.
Yes. And so I like that he kind of owes up to what he did. And it's funny because they've been teasing throughout the season that he's not really his father's son. He's not this evil guy. He's just trying to be. And yet in a way he kind of is, because Roy is just this sniveling little baby. And we've seen that when push comes to shove, Gator kind of is too. So they're not too far apart. It's like, yes, Gator has more of a little bit of his mom's moral compass, and not as much as from Roy. But I did like that he wasn't just going to be another casualty. I like that they paid off the hint of where that storyline was going. So then Agent Meyer walks up to Dot, and she's like, oh, I've contacted Wayne and told him you're all right and everything. She's like, oh, good. It's like, where's my state trooper? Where's my Whit Fargo? She really wants to thank him. And Meyer's just like, And Dot starts breaking down, and we see Whit's body loaded onto a stretcher. And that was sad, because I did admittedly on my first viewing have a tinge of hope that maybe he was going to live, even if he was debilitated afterwards, that he would make it. But no, Roy, bastard.
Yeah. That's why we get to see him later.
Yes, and so
but I do want to say, like, and with that is that knowing that they were dead, and then Dot, like, so Dot walks up to Gator, and then did you really see my mother? No, I didn't. I thought I did. And it is a fascinating idea that now, like, the vision of hope that Dot had for a happy ending, exactly everything that you're saying, what she wanted to happen 2 episodes ago was fiction. It was imagination. It was a dream sequence. Boo. But okay. But I like how it sort of pays off in this, in that Gator doesn't even realize, like, at this point, he is in one of the most traumatized positions that I think that you possibly could be. And for him to be like, maybe the only thing he is seeing now is his mother. Like, there is that, like, what do you see when you're blinded? What is it after that sort of trauma that is going to bring you comfort? And so when you ask, and so again, it does set up the rest of the episode too, just in terms of the forgiveness that is in Dot's heart. And she is much more of a defender than she is, what do you call it? Aggressor.
Yeah. So then, and I was surprised. I thought they were gonna have a shot of them pulling the bodies out of the, finding it just to certify the victory. That okay, we got Roy, because there's not only Danish Graves, there's Linda, there's Jordan Seymour, which is the name of the hospital patient they kidnapped and shot and dumped in there. So he killed those 2 people. He killed Linda. He killed Whitfar. So yeah, and he killed Odin. So he's going down for those 5 murders for sure. So Dot is driven home. She has a happy reunion with Scotty and Wayne in the front yard, and we see that Lorraine is there, and she's trying to be all tough or whatever. And she's like, "So I got the download about what happened. Shot him in the stomach, did you? That's my girl," type of thing. And then Dot just kind of embraces Lorraine, and then
it's a beautiful moment.
It is. They hug it out. It's like it solidifies that she is now fully in the circle of Lorraine, and all of that. And then we have a surprise where it cuts to title card 1 year later. And I was like, oh, like, because this all happened within the first 18 minutes of the show. And I'm like, wow, is it already over? Is that it? And so a year later, we find that Dot and Scotty go to Whitfar's grave. Indira's there. It's the first anniversary of Whit's death. Indira mentions that he wasn't married, but he had 6 sisters and a cat named Lucky, which she adopted. And we learned that Dot is gotten more involved at the dealership. They've opened a new branch in St. Paul. They're doing well. They leave flowers for Whit. And I admit at this moment, since there's not much, I thought that Indira was going to play a bigger role in the finale as well. I thought she kind of became a non-factor once she took the job of Lorraine. Because as much as Lorraine talked it up, like, you're the head of security and blah, 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 it almost felt like she was being more of a personal assistant through the rest of the season. And I thought she didn't get much agency. She's just kind of there, which I was kind of surprised by as well. So I admit I didn't like that. I was kind of disappointed that Indira didn't get to really play any role in the last couple episodes of the season. What do you think?
Well, like, I love Danish Graves, and I'm glad that someone sort of took his position as being the trusted confidant. There was no real deeper exploration of what was going on between Lorraine and Danish. I thought that maybe he was sort of a lover, but maybe it's just that he was the businessman who would.
Well, Lorraine is married. Don't forget that. He was her husband. I know. In the first episode. Said to be a guy who likes historical warfare, and I thought he would have gotten involved because of the allusions to 1776 and all, and the raid, the guns, and he just disappeared after the first episode. That was it. Her whole extended family disappeared after that first couple episodes. It was kind of weird.
Hang on, Lemon. Let me finish my thought, and then we'll get to what you said. No, I'm glad that someone sort of is with Lorraine now. Like we took away Wit, who was kind of like Indira's contemporary peer, and we took away Danish, who was Lorraine's peer, and then we put Lorraine and Indira together, which means that they kind of live confidently ever after, which I'm happy with. I think that was good. You're right. When at the end of the last episode, I thought she was going to be like with the FBI, but then when you think about it, why would she? It's just a matter of getting to the FBI, and then the FBI arrives. But I liked where her, like, it's an interesting through line in the story because she's trying to be a cop and like a wife, and the wife thing fell apart. And so it makes sense that she would be promoted, as you were, to Danish Graves' position, or at least head of security. I'm not, maybe not.
I like where she ends up, like, on paper and everything. I love that.
Sure.
Felt that the way it's portrayed, it's almost like she comes off as more of a personal assistant. And because I felt her character had a few more scenes to herself developing her own storyline, I thought that was going to come back in some way in the finale, like her actively doing something other than just taking orders from Lorraine. Like she was going to maybe have a light bulb go off and do something. And instead she's just kind of there. And even though I get everything you're saying and I agree with it, I just wish the perspective was a bit different to give her a bit more agency in the final 2 episodes.
Well, and yes, absolutely. She does. But again, hey, look on the plus side. She ain't Wit.
And she ain't Danish.
And she ain't Danish. Lemon Pie says, and I really enjoyed, again, it was a beautiful moment when I heard about what was going on. And then Dot goes up and like, it is a very lovely moment just because Dot does hug Lorraine and Lorraine is like, there. And it's like, that's all she knows how to say. And then after another awkward pause, still hugging. And then Lorraine, as Lemon Pie says, when Dot hugs Lorraine, okie dokie. And that's the push away line. And it's perfect. It's in character. It's a great Jennifer Jason Leigh was an amazing presence in this entire show. I loved it. I still think she's doing her character from the Hudsucker Proxy, but I'm fine with that. But it was, I thought that was a lovely moment, Lemon. Thank you. Yes, well noted, sir, or ma'am, or Danish.
Any other comments to get to before we move on?
No, that's it. I'm keeping up as we go, yo. We don't have that much.
Then we cut to a federal penitentiary in Thompson, Illinois. So it's like, okay, they put Roy in Illinois away from North Dakota and any of his other friends. And we see Roy's being brought into the visitors section in his jumpsuit with the chains. And he sits down and we see Lorraine and Indira are there. And Lorraine says, oh, I saw that you filed an appeal. That was a mistake. He's like, oh, come on, your little show trial and your judges and all that. And just kind of brushing it aside like it's nothing. And she's like, well, I'm here because today is when the real punishment begins. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she turns to Indira and she's like, what are you talking about, lady? And she's like, and Indira snaps at him and says, watch the way you're talking, mister. And he's like, she wouldn't last 5 minutes in here. She's got too many principles. So Lorraine considers that. And kind of agrees with it. And she's like, she turns to Indira. She's like, do you mind waiting outside? And she's like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. So she goes outside and then she turns back to Roy. And she's like, yeah, you're right. She does have.
No. I do have to interrupt you because when she does say, when Roy says, this little show trial of yours and everything like that he does. And then she says, I'm on the Federalist board. I am in charge of judges. Like up to the Supreme Court with the permission of the president. So if you think you're ever getting out of here, wipe that away. You're never getting out of here. I will ensure that I have the political connection and power to do so. And then that's when Roy is like, and she's like, oh, damn, this is when the bad stuff is going to, now that you're settled in and you know everybody,
well, that's sure when she tells Indira to leave before she mentions she's going to be corrupt. Because Indira seems a bit naive to it because she asked her to leave before she mentions the Federalist Society because she doesn't want.
Oh, really?
She doesn't want Indira to know that she's pulling the strings and being a bit corrupt. And so she's like, sir, I control I'm the biggest donor to the Federalists. She's like, what do they do? Could you read a bunch of books?
Yeah.
That's when she mentions that, I control the judges all the way up to the Supreme Court, including the president, who approves those things. And I thought they missed a really good joke here where she could have mentioned that, well, the president's the one who lit the fire under the FBI to go after you because I told him to do it, to give him a sense of just how powerful she really is. And instead she's like, do you know the great 85% of incarcerated prisoners are debtors? And I've started up a little charitable fund for them because their families are often kicked off onto the streets when they go to prison. And I've set up a good charity for all the men in cell blocks A, B, and D. And he's like, well, so, give them some money in their commissaries so they can get, Vienna sausages and Vaseline. And he's like, well, like what kind of prisoners? And she gestures to, like those two guys over there. And you see these two guys like grinning and really angry, sneering at Roy. And he's like, okay, so mighty charitable of you, very Christian. And she's like, oh, no, I didn't do this for the sake of being Christian.
No, she says, I didn't do it because of that book.
Just, I didn't do it because of that book. I did it for something more archaic, much older, cut into stone tablets. It's like, you are going to feel the same fear, humiliation, and pain, every blow, every cry, every squeal that you inflicted on your wives. Because he's like, oh yeah, this is, because he was talking a big show about how prison's great because this is how, the pecking order should be and the natural order of things. The races are separated by their superiority, referring to, of course, the prison gangs, and talking about how the strong are on top and the weak are on the bottom and are killed or done away with, and you sleep with one eye open and all that shit. And so once she's telling him basically that, hey, I'm basically wiping out these prisoners' debt and giving them money to make your life a living hell, and you're never getting out of here.
Yeah.
And he finally starts processing that, and she's just kind of takes out a pack of filtered cigarettes and slides it across the desk. She's like, these might come in handy. And she gets up and starts walking away.
Now, what do you think she meant by that line?
Well, you barter cigarettes to get away from things, and you only have so many left before he's not going to... It's like a countdown. Like he's going to be able to count down one cigarette at a time that he trades away to be able to keep the wolves at bay before they start going after him in a way. It's like that's his last... This is your last thing that you're ever going to get from anybody. Because nobody's going to be putting money in your commissary. And like they say in prison, you trade cigarettes for things or whatnot, and you can count how many cigarettes are in here. This is the last. You can literally count down to when it is going to happen. And he will be subjected to all kinds of physical, sexual, emotional abuse, whatever he's done. And so as she's walking away, they're playing the great, awesome music. And then Roy kind of looks back over at those two prisoners who are sneering at him still. And he kind of quietly lifts his hand across, grabs the cigarettes, and the camera kind of closes in on him. And you see him kind of looking a little nervous, ever so slightly, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I knew at that moment we weren't going to get another scene with him, but I still wanted to see that Jerry Lundegaard moment where he was actually squealing and crying. Like, that would have really been the best payoff, but I do like that they didn't simply kill Roy. I love that this is... it's even now. You're going to endure the same thing that you did to your wives and everybody else, and now you're the bitch, so to speak. You're done. And so I loved that ending for Roy.
Yes, I enjoyed. The last place I saw him was being cast into a pit of psychos, and luckily he's one of them. He could be the worst of them. No, probably not. But he's pretty bad.
Talk a big show, but he has
killed people and sexually assaulted women, and those are two big ones. You don't do those,
right? But I mean, you have to also look at the why he did it. Like, for instance, rather than just like he kills his father-in-law just for talking a little bad words to him, and he's really losing his cool because he said a few bad things, and it's like, really, Roy, you're gonna kill him for that? Or like he killed Danish Graves, and he knew when he killed Danish Graves that was going to bring the hellfire of the hounds on him, and it's like. He consciously thought about it while he was sitting there behind the desk, like just playing this out in his head. And he seemed to think that there was some way he was going to, bullshit his way out of the confrontation that was coming. Like when we saw him on the horse in the beginning of the last episode, trying to give him so many chances to run away because he was scared, but he couldn't control his temper. He's just, how dare somebody talk back to me? Oh, I can talk back to him, blah, blah, blah. So he's not going to last that long in here, and it's only because the prisoners he's been able to put on a show so far in prison, but because the other prisoners haven't had much of an incentive to go pick a fight with him, because he is admittedly a physically imposing man, but now they do have a very good incentive to do so, especially if some of these prisoners are lifers who could really afford to get all the money that Lorraine might be giving them.
Well, and there was something else that, like, again, Roy was boasting about it, and it does, again, I don't want to in any way, shape, or form. It seems that
That's right, she
Don,
calls it the era of skullfuckery. That's what Lorraine called
the
it.
era of skullfuckery, but also, like, there's a neck, he has a stylized swastika neck tattoo.
Yeah.
And he says that prison is the way the world should be. Everyone's divided into races. The strong of those races rise to the top. The dead die. You fuck your enemies and you sleep with one eye open. Like,
yeah,
that is one of those. Again, it's the same sort of situation with him reclining in his tub at the beginning and being like, you think you're going to embarrass me because I'm in this? I'm fine with this. And then just to turn up the, almost like a frog in a pot. Good for you, Lorraine. Turn up the heat. Make sure that the guy doesn't, he's going to enjoy his death. It's going to be fun. He'll go quietly, happily. It's just, yeah. So anyway, bye, Roy. Hope you die later.
Now, this is another thing I wanted to bring up. This show usually has a very strong moral compass in terms of, like, if it seems like a villain is kind of getting away with something in one of the seasons, it's still framed from the perspective almost of the good guys. Like, this is a really bad thing. The bad guy's getting away with it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at the beginning of the season, Lorraine was a really condescending bitch. She was condescending to people who were poor. She didn't have any pity for people who were in debt. She was really callous about it. And I'm like, I just wanted to see somebody take that all away from her to see how she likes it, type of thing. And just because she learned to appreciate Dot and Indira, it's almost like the writers kind of decided to redeem her for it, but they're also sort of celebrating her tyranny, because it's like, yeah, you're using your tyranny for a good thing to put Roy down, but it's like you're rigging judges and rigging trials, and you're paying off people's debt not because they deserve it, but because you just want them to make this guy's life a living hell, and maybe they don't deserve to have their debt wiped out, or they don't deserve to have a comfortable life in jail. And it's like the show was seemingly celebrating that she's continuing to be extremely corrupt and, you know, having this much power. Whereas in other seasons with bad guys, it's like it's framed as a bad thing if they're starting to get away with it. But, oh, because she's getting wrong, I guess it's okay. And it felt like the first time, again, barring season 4, that we're going to actually say it's okay to do bad things. Because, you know, the Coen Brothers universe, it's like, if you do bad things, you break the law or something, you are going to pay for it one way or another. Maybe not by dying. It could be something as minor as, like, you know, Sugar getting in a car accident at the end of No Country, breaking his arm. It's like, but Lorraine, it seems like she just kind of, yeah, she loses Danish Graves, but I felt that given how condescending and the way they wrote it at the beginning, I mean, the fact that she literally has a book embroidered, The Debtors of North Dakota, in her opulent mansion. Like, there's so much making the point that she is just living off of everybody else's misery. And I didn't really like that the show is sort of celebrating that at the end of the season, that, oh, it's okay for you to live off somebody else's misery and to be corrupt and rig trials and all that, so long as you're doing it against other characters we don't like.
Well,
so I understand. Like a break from the norm.
I understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from, but you know, we're gonna have to skip ahead a little bit, because I think that the moral compass of this season has been forgiveness, but specifically through the eyes of Dorothy, and maybe it is something. Like, it is something about the selflessness of thinking of others and the people who have been sort of isolated and distant from the needs of other people around them are the ones who get punished. And if you maintain that isolation and certitude, that again, there has to be usually there's like, when characters are punished, it's because of a flaw that they will not redeem themselves. Now, there are people who, again, there are people who die for the representation of a career, like in terms of wit, an ideal. He dies for that, but that also elevates the ideal. And I think we still do get that. Heck, by golly. Even Danish. to a certain extent, is dead because of a virtue as opposed to a fallibility. Like he did die because he thought he could.
He finally did the right. He finally stepped up to do the right thing instead of just like for instance, that scene when he goes to visit Vivian in the nightclub and just totally humiliates him like that, and he's just totally cool with it, even though it's not really his own personal concern. He's just there as Lorraine's errand boy. But it's almost like, well, you being her errand boy for this type of stuff, it's like, yeah, Vivian was kind of a jerk when he was insulting her, but does he really deserve to have his entire life torn down to absolutely nothing and his son's kicked out of college just because he gave her one insult? No. But Danish is fine ruining other people's lives like that. And so finally it was interesting that he had to pay the piper once he decided to do the right thing. That's where the piper came calling and he had to pay the debt. And Lorraine, I felt, never paid any debt. It's like she kind of, in a sense, was rewarded because she was rewarded by finding she finally appreciates her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter even more and loves them even more and is, in a sense, rewarded for everything that's happened. And I just thought that was a little bit of a break from the norm of Fargo. Like, even in other seasons where it's not explicitly shown if the villain's going to get it, there's enough of an implication that, okay, Coen brother rules, we see what's going to happen here. And that was just something that, unless they bring her back in another season, but I doubt it. I think that this season, leaning into the themes that it was leaning into and the political themes and all that, she's safe on top of the mountain. And I did think there was one joke that they could have told also when she was leaving Roy, because they made the point of being overtly political when they made the point that he was a big time Trump supporter. And she should have told him that, well, it was actually President Trump who lit the fire underneath this for you. But then again, maybe it's great. Taking badges away from guys like you is making America great again. I thought that would have been really funny.
I think it would have been on the nose. I think it would have been a little much. But also, Lemon Pie in the chat says, I am not one to jump to calling shows woke, but there was an undeniable strong women. I'm not going to say whammon. Come on, be an adult. Hooray vibe. I know what you mean. You can say strong women. You don't have to say strong whammon, or you can be like, well, we'll finger quote strong women. Hooray vibe in this season, and they even celebrate Lorraine that way.
Yeah, and I agree.
Well, then there we go.
They were clearly leaning into that this season, especially in the 6th episode where they really go all in.
But also, that wasn't something that was a difference between. Well, first things first, it was a difference between Lorraine and Roy. But then again, just because Lorraine is a different version of bad doesn't mean that she gets off scot-free.
And it's kind of an interesting way that Lemon Pie says it, because season 2 is also overtly political, but it does it in a much less absurd way, because it's like the 70s, and you'll see when we watch it, it's one of the best seasons of television, period. But it does it in a much more tasteful, understandable way and makes its point without being kind of eye-rolling at times. And this season got a little bit of that. And Holly said they were going to do that this season. He's like, we're going to make this more absurd. We're going to compensate for how serious the tone of season 4 was. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely there. And it feels like it feels like they kind of broke their own Coen Brothers rules a little bit for the sake of, like you said, saying, hooray, strong for, Lorraine at the end there a little bit.
Yes. Well, then I can see it. I maybe, again, with less experience in the Holly Fargo verse. And this is, as he said, it did go into absurd. We had a dream sequence episode.
Yeah.
That was lame. Like, I don't like dream.
And then they kept intercutting the dream sequences with the non-dream sequences, which made it more confusing.
Exactly. Like, that was a little bit. I didn't like that.
I mean, I get it. It was the essence of what what the backstory was, because you can't get too dark on Fargo. I think the darkest they actually got in this season was in the 8th episode when he's trying to chain whip her in the barn. That was like, damn, that was intense, But yeah.
I think we're all agreed. For everyone watching, everyone on the re-rub, Lemon Pie, I agree. I don't come to YouTube to behave like an adult JK. I'm assuming that means junior kindergartner.
Just kidding. One other thing before we get to the final scene here. They never did reveal where Dot was going when she left Scotty at Indira's house and said, I have to go take care of something. I'll be back in a couple of days. Because she got in the accident in the parking lot and was kidnapped.
Right.
So I'm still kind of at a loss for what her plan was. Like, where was she going exactly? Like, she was driving to North Dakota, clearly back to Stark County, but was she going to just go in and kill Roy? I mean, I don't really know.
Nope.
No.
Bad episode.
Oh, and I should say before I forget, barring again season 4, there were no connections whatsoever to the first 3 seasons of the show or the movie in this season. This so far is purely its own thing. No tie-ins, no characters showed up from other episodes, nothing. And given that season 4 is set in 69 years earlier in Kansas City, then it's safe to say there's no ties to season 4 either. So this was its own thing which is, okay.
It's funny. There was a review that I read. Well, no connections, like in terms of characters, but like when I read the review of the first 2 episodes, they said this leans too heavily into the movie. Like they're really hitting you over the head with the fact that this is based off of Fargo the movie, and it's like
with certain homages, but not like narrative ties, like not specifically referencing events from the movie or the other season, even though they're all set in the same universe.
Right.
So now we get to the final scene. Scotty and Dot, I don't know why I keep forgetting her name, but because she got 2 names. So she comes home and 3. She goes inside and they take their shoes off. She's like, I got this cottage cheese, honey. And it's like, okay. And oh, there's this guy here. And we see Olay sitting there with his black coat on. And he's got his skirt with his Three Stooges haircut. And this scene is kind of hilarious as Wayne just is not reading the room at all. No. And Dot has to play it carefully because Wayne and Scotty don't know who this guy is. And he's like, a man frees a tiger, but does that mean the man is finished with the tiger? And she's like, okay. So she goes to sit down and he's talking about the nature of debts and how debts must be repaid. And that one must extorts a pound of flesh, then a pound of flesh must be returneth. And that kind of stuff. And he's going on about it. And Wayne is kind of getting uneasy. He's like, yeah, well, the football game starts at 7. And he's like, oh, yeah, maybe you like a soda pop. So he goes back into the kitchen and he keeps talking. And Dot kind of leans in. She's like, why are you here? Like, what do you want? It's like, our business is through. And, and Wayne comes back and gives him the orange soda and, clinks the glasses together. And he's kind of not really used to what this is about. And she says, and he insists that, no, you still owe me for this. And she's kind of trying to tread lightly between it. And before we know it, they're in the kitchen. And she's starting to make biscuits and stuff and trying to show him how to make it. And he says, a man, he kind of interrupts them because he's wondering what the hell's going on. He's like, a man has a coat. And then and they're just kind of ignoring him, just going about their work in the kitchen. And he's like, no, a man must stick to his coat. And Scotty kind of grabs his arm. He's like, you're in the way. And she pushes him aside to keep cooking. And then Dot's like, oh, Wayne, will you take Mr. Monk's his coat? And he does tell her how his name is pronounced. It's Ule Munk. Mm-hmm. And finally, she's like, she kind of sidles up alongside him finally. And Dot says, look, I kind of guessed that Roy probably paid you to do what you did. But you complaining about me fighting back when you tried to kidnap me unprovoked is like you complaining that when you stub your toe and blaming the table. And that it's really stupid. And he kind of seems to get it. She doesn't go so far as to say that, hey, man, I'm entitled to defend myself. So if anything, because you attacked me unprovoked, you owe me a pound of flesh, and you paid it back when you saved me last year, so we're even. She should have said, she didn't want to antagonize him, so she doesn't say that, but you could tell she's thinking it. And so because she mentions this about Roy, that, look, that, he paid you for this, I don't care. It's water under the bridge. It's silly for you to be upset with me. And before we know it, we have another hard cut, and they're sitting at the table. Yeah. And it's like, what's going on? And now he finally tells him his story about how he came over the sea from Wales and how his family were the oars of the 300 men rowing their way to Wales over from Norway. And he's talking about how as medieval they were soldiers called to battle, always having to do the deeds of others until finally he became a sin eater in this town. And Wayne is kind of freaked out, kind of scared and wondering that this guy's kind of a loon. Scotty looks at him very sympathetically. And Dot is kind of unsure. She's looking at him not really. It's like, is this guy being serious? He's 500 years old. Is he actually that crazy? And he says, he's telling him about talking about the ritual of the sin eaters, how they would be called to eat the sins of the dead. She's like, well, what kind? And Dot's like, well, what kind of meal? He says, the sins. You have to eat the sins of the rich, and for this service, you're shunned by everyone, and constantly eating the sins of others. And she makes the connection immediately with Roy, and she's like, yeah, how they always make you feel like it's your fault, making you feel small, pummeling you into a corner. But she asks him again, why should the debt be repaid? Because she asked him that on the couch as well, like, what's this about? And she's like, well, why do you have to? These debts have to be paid back, sir. It's like it seems like this is kind of a really horrible life cycle that you're in, and she's like this idea of eating the sin of others is like, there's a way we could get, break the cycle, so to speak. She doesn't phrase it that way, but she says that, well, here, why don't you've been invited now to this table, you're sitting down, you're having a meal, but this is a meal made of love. And she gives him a biscuit, and he's kind of weirded out by this, because the idea that somebody who he feels has every reason to hate her, even though he didn't really like her that much either, is being forgiving. That this theme of forgiveness is something that's completely foreign to him, because he's used to constantly being pummeled in a corner and having to, eat the sins of everybody else. And she, having finally gotten the understanding of that, yeah, like Roy delegates to everybody else and makes them do his dirty work and pay for it. You've been having to do his dirty work and pay for it. I've had to be on the receiving end of his dirty work. And now, no, we're going to break this cycle by you sitting here, and we're going to have, and because he mentions that he's like condemned to live forever as long as he's been eating the sins and until he is purged of the sins. And so she mentions that if you sit here and have this meal made with love and caring and respect and a formal invitation, then it will break that cycle. So he takes the biscuit, he takes a bite, and gives the weirdest, unsettling looking smile ever. And you could tell it's like he's been filled with rejoice for probably the first time in his life or in centuries. And I feel at that moment his immortality has been broken, and now he could, live almost like a normal life. And that was a neat way of ending it. And the whole scene reminded me of when
they do cut to black. I would like to say that in the unrated director's cut, he flips the table and murders everybody.
No, the scene did remind me, though, of the scene in No Country for Old Men when Sheriff Bell goes to visit his Uncle Ellis and tells him that he's retiring, and Ellis tells him how it is and how it's always been, and it ain't really different, because that's kind of how LA was summing up life. He's like, no, this is how life works. You pay a debt. If you get indebted to somebody, you pay the debts back. You always eat the sins of the rich. We're always going to be in this shit cycle forever, and then little people are never going to get out of this cycle of abuse, and you can't weasel your way out of this just because Roy went to jail and you owe it. And so her kind of phrasing it back around, it's interesting, because in the parallel scene I found in No Country, the sheriff just kind of accepts what Ellis says and goes back to living a quiet life because he realizes Ellis is right. Whereas in this scene, Dot decides that she's not just going to accept what Ole is saying. And even though she already convinced him not to kill her, or at least maim her, however he was going to exact that pound of flesh, she decides to take it a step further and kind of, in a sense, is quoting Marge from the end of the movie when Marge is telling Geyer Grimsrud in the back of the car about the pleasures of the simple things in life. And this idea of revenge and money and debts and everything, it's just ridiculous. You killed your friend over a little bit of money. It's like you took the job for money, and yeah, it didn't go well, but then you killed your friend for what? For just a little money because you were a little upset about something. Why can't we forget what happened to being nice? Kind of like what Bill says in the first season by Bob Odenkirk character, where he's like, what happened to just being neighborly and being friendly? And so Dot has basically, in a sense, been quoting the same thing that Bill said, that Marge said, but to happier results, because Ole in this season, Ole Munk, the Anton Chigurh, Lauren Malvo type character of this season, does not go on a murderous rampage this time.
Meanwhile, Lemon Pie in the chat says that Ole is better than Anton Chigurh.
Yeah, because Anton Chigurh was very one-dimensional. He's traumatized from his experience in Vietnam, and he can't fathom why he lived and other people didn't, which is why he became obsessed with the idea of fate. Whereas here, Ole actually has a really tragic story. Admittedly, he's not in as much of the season as I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to come back and have a bigger role, but it seems that his overall purpose was to break the relationship between Roy and Gator, and that's ultimately what prompted Gator to turn against his father for the betterment of everybody else. And to also,
yeah, but when you say, and I'll keep this up, when you function so Roy hires Ole, and to go get Dot, doesn't work out, obviously, and then goes back and says, you didn't tell me what I was up against. And then they're like, okay, fine. So they figure that they'll just dispatch this hobo, but he's better than the fuck up son. and he gets away. And then he decides to, you know what? You have broken our deal. Like, and I can't say it as eloquently as Mr. Mook, but like, I do appreciate that in this episode when Wayne gives him the the orange soda, it's like, a man is grateful. Like, he still does the same things no matter what the situation, the elevation. The way he communicates is in this sort of very deliberate, quasi-religious exclamation, which I thought was interesting. And when you take away the menace of that, and you put that man in a kitchen making Bisquik biscuits. By the way, I do want to bring up the recipe, but like, it does humanize that person. And in the same way that all it takes is for someone like Dot to not just automatically pick up a chair, break it, and stab him in the eye, which she's capable of doing. We've seen her do that all season. And she decides, well, like, I thought Wayne was being held when I first, like, not held physically, but held hostage, as don't move kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, because you see the way Olay's sitting there, his body language, and Wayne is just, at first Wayne almost seemed kind of nervous because he's like, oh yeah, hon, there's this friend of yours, and I thought at first he was being cool because Scotty was in the room, right, and that it was going to be a more intense thing, and then it wasn't, because Olay's just kind of just waiting for her to come home.
Well, and that's the thing, is that when we enter the room and Ulay is there, it's like, oddly, Wayne doesn't seem that freaked out. He doesn't. I don't think he was. I think that Ulay said, I'm here to see Dorothy, or at this point, we know he knows it's Nadine at one point. And so it's very, like, it starts off very menacingly, and they even do have a score that rises, and you think it's going to turn into something, and it just turns into a lovely, well, no, a fucking terrifying story of an immortal sin eater who unfortunately has to have the most awful life, and no one has ever given him any consideration whatsoever. And it's finally happening. And when you call that a creepy smile at the end, remember the deleted scene in Terminator 2 Judgment Day where John Connor teaches Arnold the T-800 how to smile, and it's all goofy and shitty. In this one, this is a man who has literally never smiled. He told you his story of the entire life, and I'm glad that you appreciate it. I think it was a great performance, but I just think that is the end, where it's just like, we are, and maybe it's the writers manipulating, maybe it's weird, but like, it's the manipulation of, you know what, this story has been about this woman who has been through hell and back, and all she wants to do is make Bisquik at the end of the day. And people in this particular instance, this is the hardship, or the second hardship, hopefully the final act of the hardship in her life. And all she wants is a quiet family. That's all she wants. And now this guy is here, and because of what she truly embraces, she has achieved at least the affection, if not the respect, of her mother-in-law. She already had Scotty and Wayne, and now she's just saying, can you please stop with the revenge and the murder?
Well, that's another
parallel, and just enjoy the small things, as you said, what Margie said at the end of the first movie.
And that's another parallel with No Country for Old Men, in that when Llewellyn's widow comes home from her mother's funeral, finding Chigurh sitting there in her room. And in the book, the scene goes on for quite a while, where she's like, you don't really have to do this. And she does kind of the same thing that Dot does. She tries to get to, appeal to him and say, why are you really doing it? And then she tries to explain that logic to him, but he doesn't have none of that. And because she's not, and he still flips the coin. He flips the coin, but she won't call it, but he still kills her anyway. But in this, because you have Wayne and Scotty there, and because Dot is just, they're making dinner, and there's kind of like, you wonder how differently that scene would have gone if Wayne and Scotty weren't there. Like, how long would he would maybe sit impatient and listen to a bit, but it seemed to be the actual physical action of inviting him into the kitchen and helping in getting him to help make the dinner and sit down with him at the table, which made him more receptive to what they were doing, which in Llewellyn Moss's widow's case wasn't able to do. And so Sugar won that argument, even though she saying basically the same type of stuff that Dot was saying to Olay. And in this case, and because I would imagine if the book had gotten into it, Sugar was a very similar character in the sense
but you're talking about the book. You're talking about the book. I don't give a goddamn about Cormac McCarthy. Fuck Cormac McCarthy.
No, stop. I'm not talking about the book at this point.
Okay.
Because in the movie, she shows up there. She says, "You don't really have to do this." And he laughs like, and she's like, "But you don't really have to do this." And he does. Why? Well, we get it. He's a Black Ops, Vietnam, traumatized, and all that. So he was once a normal person who's been traumatized. That was not in the movie. Whereas Olay is somebody again who's been the sin eater and been just on the receiving end of shit for his whole life. But Dot actually succeeds, and that's actually a neat way, I think, to hammer the point home. Because you take the character who you think is going to be the darkest, scariest character because of his backstory and the weird macabre symbol that he left on Roy's wall. And he's the one who accepts forgiveness, whereas Roy is the one who just doubles down on being a jerk.
Quick question. Was that the same image? Because they do make a point of looking at that pack of cigarettes. Is it the same bizarre image on Roy's wall that is on the pack of cigarettes? I'd have to check.
Ooh, I could check that right now, actually. I got it right here.
Well, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the fly. We got a flashback, an instant replay. We're not going to be able to show you any of that, of course, because of copyright law. Welcome to YouTube. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
That's a good question. But I do like those parallels. And it was a surprise, admittedly, how they ended the season with Olay. Because that's a long scene. It goes on for like almost 20 minutes. And it's like, okay, that's why they kind of raced through everything else in a way to get, to get to the final, point, so to speak. Granted, sometimes these finales have been much longer. This one was surprisingly short. Okay, here it is. Let's see. I am double checking right now. I'm loading it up. Okay, she's taking the cigarettes out. And let's see. No, it's a star. It's like a 4-point star shadow zone. So no.
Okay. All right. Well, they're not lucky strikes. And that was the other thing. That's the reason I asked you about the cigarettes as well. Not only just because I want to have a cigarette, but did Roy smoke through the he smoked cigars, but he never smoked cigarettes?
No, he didn't smoke cigarettes.
Okay. I was just curious because again, with John Hamm, I sort of equate him to the cigarettes because of Mad Men and all that jazz. Hey, look, the lovely Cherie is here. Hello, Cherie.
Hello. So,
and wait. There's one more thing. Lemon said Wayne is going to put Olay in a brand new Kia. It's like flying a cloud.
So overall, I felt the season was very much more plot driven than it was character driven. Tonally, it's a bit all over the place. It is definitely more absurd. It's more overt in its political direction. Yes, we will finish our engagement now. It is quite funny. And I did like that they didn't just go for the bloodbath ending, which would be kind of easy for Fargo. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted more from Whitford and Dira, and I kind of wanted to see Gator get on the stand against Roy. Because, again, I'm just assuming he was at trial. I don't know if because they never really say what Gator's punishment. Because technically, Gator didn't actually kill anybody. He kidnapped the guy from the hospital, but Roy killed him. He tried to kidnap Dot, but, he shot a corpse. He didn't kill the guy at the house. So, and the old lady, he could try and argue that she slipped, maybe. So who knows how long. He might get out of jail someday. I don't know. But, but
it doesn't matter. He's never going to get out of jail. He has no eyes.
That doesn't have anything to do with jail.
Well, no, but his punishment for his actions in trying to live up to his father cost him his eyes.
Oh, that was something I was surprised. I thought that Dot was going to tell Olay when they're in the kitchen that when she's like, I surmise that Roy's probably the one who hired you to send after me, because by now she's probably visited Gator in jail a couple times. Well, I thought she was going to tell him that, Roy didn't double cross you. That was Gator just doing that because he tried to impress his dad. And so no sooner than you abandoned him with his dad disowned him like a second later. So you went back to pick a fight with a guy who already who didn't actually double cross you, so you kind of owe a debt to Roy. It's like you could throw that logic back in his face that way, because it's true. Roy did not double cross him. Gator did that on his own, and by Olay's own worldview, he would have mutilated the son of this man for the wrong reason. He thought he was doing it to pay as a punishment for betraying me, but he didn't, because Olay accepted Roy's offer of apology and accepted the money and let bygones be bygones. But I thought, what would have happened if he had found out that, oh, it wasn't Roy, and I mutilated this man's son for nothing? Because, yes, he did it partly for himself, of course, because he wanted to avenge the old woman, but he made a point of deliberately going out of his way to take him back to his father because he wanted to, in your face type of thing, like, this is what you get, even though Roy kept his promise to him per Olay's old worldview. So I thought that maybe she was going to tell him that, but that didn't. That didn't play out that way. Who knows? Maybe he really got it in the trial in the papers.
It would have been a bit of a speed bump in the whole, theme of redemption at the end and what a good person Dot is. But I do believe in how good of a person Dot is. And for whatever reason, like the fact that she made her own house into a fort shows me that she'll protect something, and she has no interest in the rest of the outside world. Like, even it's like, oh, Dad's making chili, we got to get sour cream. We're going to get M&Ms. And then just like the character beats and the love of that family. And I thought we were sort of set up to dislike Wayne at the beginning, but he just turned out to be a milquetoast. And by the end of the show, in terms of his character arc, he still is. But he's, simping for his wife, which I think is what you're supposed to do, especially when you find out that she can build a fort out of your house. So, like, she's a hell of a lot more badass than you thought she was, and now you don't need your mom so much. They're happy with and as they mention, in terms of the expansion of the dealerships, having the one in where was that? St. Paul.
Yeah.
And it's like they're doing it together now. Of course, they can build a world together now that the oppression, like even the pressure from Lorraine onto Wayne, not happening.
Yeah. So I like the way the season started. Like you, I wasn't crazy about the dream episode. I didn't like that it started getting overtly political and absurd kind of in the 6th episode on, but I did think that the 8th episode was the best episode of the season, because that was able to juxtapose humor with really dark, heavy stuff. And I didn't feel the last 2 episodes really metered that out. It became almost like the 9th episode, they literally playing YMCA while he's bringing in the cavalry. When it's like, okay, this is getting kind of comical at this point. They rev you up the whole 9th episode for this big showdown that doesn't really happen. Or it kind of does. It just realistically ends the way you would expect it to in 5 minutes, because obviously the well-trained former ex-military turned FBI SWAT guys are going to have a lot more skills than the morons with the guns who like to, don't tread on me. It's like, of course the feds are going to be better at this.
Weren't they hiding behind wood fences anyway? It was just a matter of, it was a standoff.
Right. I did. So I admit,
it wasn't until Dot shot Roy that anybody else started dying.
Yeah. So I admit that the finale almost went too expectedly well. Like, it's like, okay, it didn't subvert expectations as much as you would expect for not just a final episode, but just the ending of the whole overall story, in terms of this is a true story type thing that they're doing here. And I do wish that they were able to bring some of that heavier stuff from the 8th episode into the last 2, because I think it would have, because even in the beginning, it was like, geez, what the hell's going on here? This is kind of dark. This is kind of freaky. And like we met, what was it, at the end of the 3rd episode, when they ended it with Olay sneaking into Roy's house and the 3 boogie boys sneaking into Dot and Wayne's. It's like, gee, this is intense. And it's like, I didn't feel the last 2 episodes really kind of measured up to that. So overall, I still really like the season. It was it was very fun. It definitely hooked me more than the first 2 episodes of season 4 did, because I was definitely in for this to binge this show. I will binge the series now that I have them all and could watch them in a row and see how it flows. But I enjoyed it. I think, again, it could have been better. I think they could have dealt with the Lorraine character a bit more, unless they bring her back in another season, which might be cool.
Could be.
So we'll see.
Well, and that's interesting.
Ratings. We got to give them ratings too once all said and done.
Oh, what, for like each episode?
No, for the season. Like, what out of 10 stars, out of 10, whatever we were rating, what 10 bit, what were we rating it? 10? I can't remember what we called it. I don't even know if we gave it a name, but what, like, out of 10 stars, how much would you give Fargo's 5th season here?
Well, I'm kind of blinded though, because I did fall in love with Juno Temple. I thought that the character of Dorothy was fantastic, and I thought that she went toe to toe with John Hamm, and as everybody knows, I have affection for John Hamm. And I think that in terms of the pacing of the season in comparison to other Coen productions, and this is not like it's Coen-esque. It's like the James Bond novels not written by Ian Fleming. This is an adaptation. This is not from the Coen brothers themselves. And I think that it has the benefit of being able to lift from other Coen works. You heavily reference in our conversation tonight, just No Country for Old Men. I think that Anton Chigurh and Lorne Malvo are sort of their Coen-esque archetypes. And with this, I really like Ule Munch. And I think he fulfilled it. And I thought that there was something, while could be considered anticlimactic or an intensity that falls to a denouement or a coda, I think is very interesting. I think that's how The Big Lebowski plays out. And that's how
I thought there were going to be more parallels to The Big Lebowski because of that tease. Like, they first announced this season saying that, when is your wife not your wife? When is a kidnapping not a kidnapping? And so I thought, oh, The Big Lebowski, because she was never kidnapped and she's sort of a trophy wife, but there's no romance there. It's like, so I thought they were going to be more into Big Lebowski this season. But then I
do think that, again, like there's a climax to The Big Lebowski, and then you're there for another 20 minutes.
Right.
And I feel like there's a climax to this episode or this season, and then there's the last episode.
Right. Yeah, because I critiqued last week that episode 9 felt like almost like half an episode because it's revving you up for what's going to happen. Right. The first 18 minutes of episode 10 is the ending of episode 9, really. And then you have the epilogue with Olay, and then Lorraine dealing with Roy. But because, and I think John Hamm was amazing in this show. I haven't watched Mad Men yet.
Thanks, DJ Play Nice, swinging through to say hi. Bump the algorithm. Y'all have fun. You too, sir. Keep swinging.
So yeah, I think John Hamm was absolutely amazing in this show. I hope he gets more maybe Emmy recognition when the show becomes eligible for Emmys next time around.
It's too far in the past. No one will remember it.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was good. I think I give this season though a 7 out of 10. I gave season 1 I think a 9. I think if we have that written down, I have to double check. Whereas I gave the movie like a 6.
I might have given. I usually put a graph, but anyway, let me look. No, I would say, yeah, I would ballpark this about a 7. Like I do also want to check and see what. No, I didn't get it. Fargo 3 and 4, Muddy Road, Eating the Blame. What am I babbling about here? I don't know. I should write down. I should take better notes, Kat, is what I'm saying. Everybody's done. We've heard. We both give it a 7, and now everyone's out. Peace. No. But yeah, if you guys are having fun with Fargo, we're doing Fargo season 4. Well, I'm just saying we're conversational at this point.
Oh yeah, season 4 I think is good because if we go back to the format of 2 episodes a week, there's 11 episodes, so that means the 11th episode will be reviewed on Thursday, the 29th of February. So we'll be finished with season 4 at the end of February, at the exact last day. So that measures out kind of nicely. Plus, even though there will be
Is it a leap year this year?
Yes, 2024.
Holy shit, yo!
Plus, even though there will be future seasons of this show, I figure for our review series we want to go out on a high note, and I have a feeling, granted, it's each their own. We might really love season 4. We'll find out. But I figure it'd be better to finish on one of the higher notes, like season 3 or season 2. So we will be back next Thursday night with a review of the first 2 episodes of Fargo season 4. This has been a great show. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Lemon Pie, Phantom Organist, DJ Play Nice.
Organist.
Anybody else in the chat that I missed?
No. I didn't. I think I talked over you and DJ Play Nice, Lovely Cherie, Lemon Pie, and the Firefighting Organist. Oh, and Maggie. And Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU. Why don't you capitalize Star Wars, yo?
Well, actually, before we go, anybody in the chat, did you guys watch the season with us? What are your scores? Like, give us your scores. How do you rate this season? What do you think?
Yeah, drop them in the comments if you wish. If you're here, drop them in the whatchamacallit, the thing. Hey, Herc130, Flyboy, you're here.
Oh, Herc.
What's going on, bud? Herc says, I was here, just quiet. Well, you type like a mouse. But yeah, if you guys watched season 5, let us know what you think. What are you guys thinking? I kind of want to go backwards now. I want to go 4-3-2-1 or 4-3-2. Okay.
Yes.
Is Ted Danson in season 2?
Yes.
See, that's going to be such a tease for me.
Yes. And speaking of other performances, I really again loved Jennifer Jason Leigh in this season. She was great. Joe Keery from Stranger Things. I haven't seen that show yet. I remember seeing previews of his character, of him in the show, but I really liked him in this. I thought that was unique casting. Certainly better casting than other Stranger Things adjacent casting in other projects. I'm not gonna name names, but 7 out of 10. Okay, Lemon Pie. That's okay. Yeah.
It's a good season of television with there are criticisms, there are bad episodes, but on the up and up. Like, the performances are great. And the Coen-esque aspects of it, if you're going into a show called Fargo, you'll get them. Did it blow my mind? Not really. But I liked it. It made me feel things.
Yeah, it was.
And that's all I'm really looking for.
Yeah, it was fun. It was funny. It was intriguing. I was excited to watch each new episode that dropped. The pacing, I thought, was done really well. What did he say there? Season 1
was a 9
or a 10. Yeah. So this one, the pacing was a lot faster, and it just some total inconsistencies and some over absurdities here and there that didn't quite land with me very well. But yeah, I think it was still solid and fun. I liked it better than the movie.
Lemon Pie, blasphemous. Season 3 has my girl in it. That's gonna be a Kiki Dunst, yo. Isn't it going to be Kirsten Dunst?
No. She's in season 2.
Oh, son of a bitch. I can wait that long, eh?
Season 3 is the one with Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Oh, that'll be... Oh, and the two Ewan McGregors.
Yes. That's one of my favorite seasons. I think it's underrated, but I like it. Herc130 gives an 8.7. I was entertained and loved Juno's character. So different than her role in The Offer. I didn't see that show. I remember there were ads, but that was on, I think, Paramount Plus or Showtime, about the making of The Godfather, a movie which I notoriously didn't really care for, which is a running joke in one of our messenger chats, that, hey, is it better than The Godfather? Because I gave The Godfather only 3 out of 5.
At this point, I can't even imagine. It's one of those things that I don't even think we'll ever get around to reviewing it.
We could eventually, but
eventually.
Whenever we get there. We enough Fargo content through May.
Yeah. If you guys want to watch, if you want to hear Kat talk about The Godfather and me sort of babble through it, then you should let us know in the chats. Follow the Fantasmagoriums on Twitter.
Yes. So okay. So everybody shared their thoughts. That's great. We had fun this season. Some great performances. Juno Temple and John Hamm definitely stealing the show. Yeah, season 4, I haven't seen it either, other than the first 2 episodes. So this is going to be, and Scott hasn't seen it at all. So it's going to be a totally new thing, which is great. Yeah, Paramount Plus. Okay, thank you, Herc130. It was Paramount Plus.
So season 4. Yeah, no, it's all going to be brand new to me.
It'll essentially be brand new to me. It's been over 3 years since I've seen those 2 episodes, so I can't really remember much of it.
But we got Jason Schwartzman, we got Chris Rock, and who do we got for the lady, the Jessie?
Yeah, Jessie Buckley.
That's her. I am fascinated by that woman, so I can't wait to see.
Yeah, so it's going to be and Timothy Oliphant. I remember it was a pretty stacked cast.
I believe it's pronounced Timothy Olifantastic.
All right, so I guess we will be back.
That's a Kevin Smith joke. I ripped that off of An Evening with Kevin Smith.
We will be back next week at the same time, same place, 7 p.m. Pacific for the first 2 episodes of Fargo season 4. So make sure if you follow along, you watch the first 2 episodes of season 4. We're going to go back to doing 2 episodes a week since those seasons are out. So yeah, until next time, Kat, Steve might still be mixing the biscuit, or he's starting to eat the biscuits. I don't know.
Don't you think a meal made with love just brings forgiveness?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.